Welcome to the next episode of Ask the Expert, where I'm joined today on a live web chat with Ben Riley, who is UK Technical Director at Sweagle. Hello, Ben.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So, Ben, you've been working with software technology over the last, 13, 14 years, is that right?
Absolutely, it's increasing by the day, but yeah, somewhere around there.
What I really wanted to talk to you about today, Ben, was your thoughts on DevSecOps and what people need to be doing in order to kind of prepare for this, and what challenges that they need to fix. So perhaps to start off, you could just give us a quick summary of what DevSecOps means to you.
Yeah, certainly. So for me, I think DevSecOps is it's almost like a mantra or a philosophy, or however you want to see it. I really believe that it's kind of involving security right kind of within the DevOps lifecycle, right? So it's more than just putting it in there as like a blocker, but really as kind of saying, this is a cultural thing. Anytime that we're going to go and create some new code, we're going to go through our process and our pipelines, that security is at the heart of everything we do. And actually, in many ways, it should just be DevOps, and it's as ingrained as that. But I often think people kind of need a little bit of reminding of their kind of security responsibilities, and that it's really important to get right.
And when you say security, you're not solely talking about passwords.
No, I mean it can be all sorts. I mean, make sure you've got a good set of secure passwords. Make sure they're encrypted and all that sort of stuff, and secured away in a vault, or that you don't just have password 123 as the majority of passwords, I guess. But it's all sorts of things. It's vulnerabilities. It's the quality of your code. It's where those things are stored. Who's got access to them. Layers of process, which often I think scares people away a little bit, or makes you think that you're going to be doing things really slowly, but just making sure that you've got like a good understanding of how people might expose you. And it sounds a bit OTT at times, but when you're working in financial sectors, or you want to protect your customers and they're really at the heart of your business, it is important to think outside. That it is not, as you mentioned, it's not just passwords, it's not just tokens. It's that whole kind of space and the way that you're kind of trying to protect yourself, really.
Yeah, okay. So for people that are living and breathing DevOps and DevSecOps, what would you say are the most sort of challenging things that they're looking to fix right now?
I think one of the terms I hear a lot at the moment is separation of duty, or segregation of duty, and kind of the ability to make sure that people have freedom, as kind of a lot of cultural changes require freedom, and you need to give people responsibility and that sort of stuff. But I think actually the ability to control or put a level of control in there to manage things like roles and responsibilities, to manage secrets, to manage all of those dependencies that you've got across your organization, but do it in a way that doesn't impact people who shouldn't be impacted, right? If you're somebody doing something bad and you're trying to influence an organization in that way, then it should stop you. But if you're somebody just trying to develop some customer experience, a code, whatever it might be, you should be able to continue on and jump through those kind of hoops and hurdles without almost seeing it, right? And kind of get on with your day job without feeling kind of impinged.
And does it matter where you are on your kind of DevOps journey in terms of what maturity level you might be? Does that have an impact?
I mean, it doesn't. You're probably more aware. If you're quite advanced with it, you're probably more aware, or you're able to have maybe more time to go and tackle some of the more complex things that are kind of going against your organization. But the reality is, right, security should be one of the fundamentals that you get right early on. And there are things that you can do quite quickly. I keep mentioning role-based access, right? But the idea of having a set of controls that you can set up, dedicate some time to do that, get it done, And then that just puts you in a much more kind of fundamental position. So I would say there's not really an excuse not to. There's always time and there is always cost, but you kind of got to think of, well, what's the cost of not fixing it right? What's the cost of getting it wrong? So I would say it's almost irrelevant where you are in your journey. It should definitely be one of your kind of key pillars, really.
And you mentioned the cost of not doing anything. So what would you say is the cost?
Yeah, good question. So the obvious ones are things like GDPR, right? So I think that was floated around for quite a while, 2%, 4% fines if you kind of lose customer data, et cetera, et cetera. I think just general, there's a huge amount of regulations. If you work in fintech, insurance, etc., that you've got a lot of regulations that can potentially trip you up, cost you some money. I think just general outages to your customers. We were talking a few minutes ago about we were struggling to get into one of our internal apps to be able to talk to each other. It's just a bit of a pain, right? And that pain can go from that's not great to I'm going to go and find a new provider, right? So that customer experience should be one of the reasons that you're adopting something like DevSecOps as your mantra, as your pillar to kind of go forwards. So there's lots of things that'll hit you and potentially cost you, right?
And so do you have any examples that you could share with us that you might have seen throughout various different scenarios or environments or customers that you've been with, where you're seeing basically how their ability to do DevSecOps is being impacted by not sort of managing it properly?
So there's a few kind of high profile ones, and there's a few that I've just seen. So without naming names or throwing anyone under a bus, you quite often see not secured passwords in files, log files, that sort of stuff. You see. And not done maliciously, but just done through lack of awareness or real kind of careful, considered thought. We quite often see people being able to get into areas that they shouldn't be allowed into, especially if we focus on GDPR, like having a perimeter around customer information, how you share that information, how it's stored. We see examples all the time where somebody's not quite got that right, and people are able to creep over that perimeter or have ways around it. And it's the problem. It's the problem of escalation in many ways. You put in restrictions, and often people will try and find a way around them, and maybe all with the right intention, but it really shouldn't be that way, right? So and I think Google got hit earlier this year. They tried to deploy a load of servers, and before they knew it, one kind of small bit of config had caused them kind of major outages. So you see various scenarios and that impact. I think I'm going to get the stats wrong, but it's something like 99% of config related incidents you don't get notified about. And something like 1% of those incidents causes you around 20% of your SLAs. So it's quite big numbers to throw around, right? But it's really kind of important to recognise that this is kind of a space within DevSecOps that's almost not addressed or is almost forgotten. So lots of scenarios where people could definitely improve on. I guess it's just finding the time, right? That's always seems to be the main problem.
In contrast, what would you say is the best examples you've seen where people have actually recognised how config data and managing that properly can really improve their ability to increase velocity, etc.?
So we see a lot of people who have been stung previously, have had problems in the past, or had an outage, had a problem, whether cultural or whatever, who've really kind of taken on the desire and kind of the journey of putting in some controls that are not slowing them down, but are giving them the ability to release quicker, to be more confident in the releases that they put through, and get a lot of those benefits out and a lot of their time back to then filter into other jobs and other things. I mean, we see customers that have automated away a lot of these problems in terms of how they're dealing with secrets, how they're dealing with their config and CI/CD pipelines and that sort of stuff. And they do it in a way that essentially means they can forget about it, put it to one side, but actually know that if there is a problem, they're gonna know about it before it goes into production, or even earlier into pre-production or into any of their test environments. So the time, one of the things that always gets me is the amount of time that gets lost in early environments. And people say, well, it's good about good testing and this and that, but actually it's in many ways lost time. So if you can do it right first time, which maybe you're a superhero, maybe you can, but the quicker you can get those things resolved and the quicker you can deploy with better kind of quality. And we see customers doing that now, which is awesome, which is really great to see.
Would you say that, in your opinion, is automation really the way forward and the way to go?
In lots of cases, yes. I think there are arguments for it and against it, right? And it's more, what are you automating? If you've previously built a test bed of pretty good tests that cover your bases, is it worthwhile automating those, or is there a bigger problem that you need to go and solve first? So for me, the idea of seamless automation is brilliant. I think it's just where you apply it, right? Applying it into the right space at the right time to get you the most benefit and get your customers therefore the most benefit is kind of the key aim. I would say come along to our technical webinar that we've got coming up October 22nd. It is technical. We will be showing Sweagle and config data and how it applies in lots of different ways, role-based, secrets, auditing, CI/CD, so a real wide spectrum of stuff. It's only a short, I think the aim is 30 minutes. If you sign up, you'll get notifications. If you miss it, it doesn't matter, you can watch any of them.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ben. I really appreciate you joining us today, and good luck for the webinar, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Bye.
Bye-bye.